Hello everybody, very, very warm welcome. I'm Susie Klein.
But it is a real pleasure to be here with all of you tonight because we will be meeting simply one of the world's leading singers. She's box office gold wherever she goes. She's not in London often enough, I think. She is Ms. Renée Fleming. Can you talk about a role that you did, the previous role, when you were at this house, which was when you sang Traviata, I think. Tell me about why this role is so right for you, because you did it when I think, were you 50 that year? And that seems in a way contrary to what you might do about Traviata when you might meet that role, but to do it that year and to do it so exquisitely, why did that feel like the right role to do at that time?
Well, it's interesting because I started singing Traviata very late. You know, I only sang her for 10 years altogether, and only a handful of times, but I just felt that she was so demanding. Violetta was such a demanding role, and I was afraid of doing these big, famous parts anyway. You know, I definitely have to say I found solace in obscurity all of these years doing unusual things, which have become the norm. I mean, when I sang Rusalka for the first time, nobody had really heard of it. So, and now it's part of the standard repertoire. And Traviata, on the other hand, is one of the roles by which all historic sopranos have been measured, and historically they've been measured. So I wanted to wait until I felt that I could sing all four roles into one, and also until I had something to say. I really felt strongly that I had been disappointed sometimes when I'd seen the part because I didn't get a specific point of view. And so once I developed that, I thought, okay, now. And I've stopped. I don't sing Violetta anymore. So it was kind of a short window, and I'm so happy that the one here was captured, because working with Richard Eyre in this production was an incredibly special experience.
Okay, let's see a little of it now. You have tears in your eyes watching that. When you look back at that, do you think, do you know what, I did that role for a certain period of time, but I really felt I got it?
Well, right now I'm just thinking, poor Violetta. I'm in the moment, I immediately am in that moment, because that moment is the pivotal moment in the entire opera, and it's the moment where she takes the high road, and no one else does in the opera, ever. And she is the one who says, I'm going to do the right thing. And it's when she turns around, I always talk about my characters in the third person, and waits. She's making the decision to do that, to sacrifice herself for the honor of Alfredo's family. It's just so wonderful. You know, that's why we love this opera. In fact, that's why the role is so enormously grateful. And more than anything I've ever sung, except maybe the Marschallin, that's the role in which I really felt that I succeeded in making the audience forget I was singing. That it was, it's so well drawn, the story is so well told, that ideally you're sitting there and you're involved in the story and you're saying, no, don't. You know, so That's the thing that I thought. And yeah, there are certain things that have been captured. It's funny now because everything gets filmed, even whether you want to or not. I just sang in China, and the first 3 rows were iPads and iPhones. I mean, so I just thought, well, the days of trying things out are obviously gone. But when it's under the best circumstances, it is something that you really want to have as a part of, it's something that people can remember your best performances by.
The very earliest days of the career, and even earlier maybe, what gave you the opera bug? Was there a moment?
No, I wanted to be a jazz singer.
Where did it all go wrong?
You know, yes, well, that's what I was saying at the time. I just kept going with my education and applying for things and applying for, I was such a goodie. And so I just did all of the right things. And eventually the path continually pushed me in this direction. And I'm incredibly grateful it did, because it was obviously the right one, and it was the one most suited to who I am personally. So, but it wasn't a decision. It was never a conscious decision. Oh, I must do this. I have to, be an opera singer. I'll tell you what grabbed my passion was singing, was trying to unlock the mysteries of the voice that wouldn't work. I couldn't sing above the staff. I couldn't sing soft. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even roll my R's. So that challenge, I think, was what really got my attention.
But there must have been a moment in your late teenage years or earlier where you thought, you know what, I'm in possession of a potentially really exciting instrument here. This might go somewhere, even though when you're 18 you don't know if you have a career because the voice is still changing. But surely there was a moment where it dawned on you that something very exciting might be in there.
No, actually, on the contrary, I thought I was a good musician. I had very good skills, and I loved writing music, and I had an interest in mainstream music as well, with the heart of it being jazz. And in fact, I was told the contrary. I was told actually by a teacher that I adored that, because of my musicianship, I might have a career, but, the instrument was really, but I listened to myself. Somehow I found a tape or a video of myself in my college recital, and I literally sounded like a buzzing insect. I mean, there was nothing in this quality that led you to believe I was going to sound like I did 5 years later. And literally within 5 years, when I won the Met competition on that tape, you think, okay, that's Renée Fleming.
One experience that you went through that to me sounds petrifying is what you've described before as the worst night of my life, this night at La Scala, where the audience was very unhelpful. I think they booed even. You were singing Donizetti, Lucrezia Borgia. You then went back, though, and did that role elsewhere. I think you did it in San Francisco, Washington. To have the grit and the determination and the steeliness and the sort of self-possession, I think, is one of those dimensions to a singer's life that we don't often talk about, that of course it's not just about standing up there and singing the notes. How do you then bring yourself back and say, you can do this, and be able to work through those stages? Because that's an essential, it would seem, in being a successful opera singer.
Well, I don't know what that was about, really, and nobody else professes to know either. It's just a handful of people, really. It's not the audience. And but you have to eventually gain perspective and understand that it's a certain time and place, and that maybe the role is fabulous, and maybe you want to keep doing things, and frankly, maybe you want to listen to what your father told you when you were a kid and get back on the horse. I mean, that was very much a part of my upbringing, because I did ride horses, and that was ingrained in you when something went really badly. But it's not. I haven't really gone back a lot, but I did go back. I felt it was very important for my own inner, sense of self to go back and sing there and not have it be hanging over my head. Because I've met big stars who on first meeting start talking about their experience at La Scala, and I think, I don't want that sitting around and tugging at me for decades. So then it was purged and gone,
But that is an essential kind of part of the toolkit, I imagine, along with learning over the years, stagecraft, wonderful acting,
resilience
great diction.
is extremely important, extremely important. You can't lose your sensitivity and vulnerability, because that takes away from who you are as an artist. but then you have to be able to turn around and feel better in a few days and go at it again and work harder, you know, not within reason, obviously. I mean, young singers approach me a lot now, and I think, yes, give it your all, but give yourself a time limit. You know, if it's not happening by the time you're in your mid-20s, yeah, or late 20s for sure, maybe think, I mean, I didn't get started till I was in my late 20s, but it's different now. The demands are placed on people earlier even.
Recently, one of the UK's leading broadcasters, Jenny Murray, Radio 4 Woman's Hour, has come out in the papers just in the last week and said, you know, classical music is a dinosaur, sex still sells, it's absolutely essential as a woman in this world to still be sexy in a way that it's sort of not in lots of other fields. Does that, from your perspective inside that world, still feel true that somehow these, you know, young girls, whether they're singers or violinists, have to look sexy and beautiful as well as being superbly talented to have a great career? I wonder how true you think that is.
But I mean, is she saying that doesn't exist in film and television? You know, in theater? I mean, I think the standards are much higher, I mean, much more challenging. When I see women on television in the US, for instance, or you just go to the Emmys or go to the Oscars, people are impossibly beautiful, all of them. And even men are beginning to be held to the same standard, and you know, they're suffering a lot too. So we've just caught up and have said, wow, the audience is expecting that we actually look like the characters we're playing. So my personal feeling is that I want people to act like the people they're playing. I don't really care what they look like. And I really want magic in the music and in the singing. And without that, I'd rather go to the theater, because I love theater.
But opera casting directors certainly have been bitten by this bug, and while it was very, very acceptable and normal to see large singers even a couple of decades ago, I would say now the look is very much more young, athletic, and that you have to kind of look the part. Is that a sort of tyranny in a world like opera, which is already asking you to do so much to be superhumanly athletic with your voice?
Well, the demands are huge, and they have changed dramatically, even in my career, the time that I've been singing, dramatically. And where I don't mind that people are asked to be athletic and to act well and to look beautiful. The only thing I mind is that people are being thrown on stage before they're properly trained, and if they look right. And what happens then is that you have this revolving door of talent, and people don't get to evolve well. They don't really get to solidify what they're doing, and more importantly, they don't develop artistry. So I'm not hearing as much musical artistry, phrasing, shaping lines, making decisions, choices in lines so that there's interest, so that you want to hear the recording and not just see it on stage, and the attention to language. But I mean, I was lucky. I mean, I didn't want to be a late bloomer. I wanted to be a star when I was 22. But I wasn't ready, and in a way I feel so grateful that I had those extra years to just study. And I wish that young singers, you know, the responsibility also lies with them to say, I'm not ready for that role, I want to take a little bit more time. I'd really like to learn some lieder, I'd like to sing art song and work on that as well, so that I can continue to develop artistically.
In terms of looking after the voice, it is, I imagine, a very fine line between becoming obsessional about it and looking after it sufficiently that it doesn't get, you know, it doesn't go astray. How far do you go down that path? How carefully do you have to wander and not, you know, make sure that you drink the right drinks and not sit in the wrong seat in a restaurant or on a plane?
I'm not very neurotic about the voice. That's the tyranny. And I really don't want to live like that. So I'd say I live in moderation, with one exception. I cannot speak in loud spaces. So I've stopped sort of going to restaurants when I can help it. So I just find that my speaking voice is terrible anyway. And I just can't be heard, and that wears me out. I find that more tiring than anything. Or to sing an entire performance and then expect to walk into a reception with a terrible acoustic and and talk to everyone there. And the sad thing is, I would love to do it. I'm very social. I want to meet everybody. But then I don't recuperate for 3 days vocally. So that's the one thing that I have to be careful about.
To talk about the genre more broadly, there are so many competing kinds of entertainment for people in 2013. They can go anywhere, do anything, and a lot of it requires a very short attention span. How, as a singer, do you feel then opera competes in that kind of landscape? Does it seem slightly bleak to you, or do things like opera become more important?
See, I'm the creative consultant now for the Lyric Opera of Chicago, and I have a broad array of responsibilities there and really interests. And I would think the thing that has captured my imagination the most is this very issue, is how to maintain our relevance in the 21st century, where to find our audience, continue our audience, maintaining it, let alone growing it, and really what are the problems that we face. And there's no question, in my mind, the biggest competition, it's not the other art forms, it's not even television or film, it's the computer. It's the iPhone, it's the iPad, it's all of our technology that keeps us keyed into the world. And I spend more time doing that than I do anything else. And I'm sure, and I know for a fact that I'm nothing like my children who do more of it, because I'm not on Facebook. So that's the biggest challenge, I think, is how, and I hope that there will be a moment, or there will be moments when people say, you know, I'm by myself doing this, or it's maybe not so satisfying to be exchanging 3 words at a time. And you know, the thing about the arts is it's a shared communal experience, and it's an experience that wants to bring us deeper into ourselves. It wants to address larger questions of humanity, of, you know, reading the newspaper and thinking, God, what's going on in the world? You turn to art to really get a point of view, and artists, whether they're making films or whether they're writing new operas. And one of the things I'm dedicated to is to saying we need new works. We need them to be part and parcel of every season. We need to have them comment on today and not only be looking for themes from 5 centuries ago, because that's the whole purpose for culture.
You have done a few things on the classic diva checklist, including you've developed your own fragrance, you've been a representative for watches, you've had a dish named after you, the best thing an opera star could ever want, called La Diva Renée. What does it taste like? What is it?
Oh, it's been a while, but it's sort of a champagne cream Napoleon with fruit on the side, and at one point my face was actually laser printed on the top. Yeah, I couldn't eat that one. That was too weird.
And yet you do strike me as somebody who, as you say, you have kids, you have a wonderful job that you love doing. Is it fun to dip your toe in the water of doing whatever a diva is meant to do?
I love these experiences, but the most interesting ones have been singing for the Nobel Peace Prize, singing in Beijing during the Olympics, singing for the Nobel laureates in Petra. These experiences, I think, are the most fascinating. Singing here in Buckingham Palace for the Queen's Jubilee. Then you feel that you have really been incredibly fortunate to have achieved a certain level that enables you access to a world that otherwise you wouldn't have a dream of coming close to.
It has been wonderful to have your insights. A real pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you. Wonderful talking to you. Thank you.